Hey guys, and welcome to another one of my tutorials. So in this tutorial, I'll be showing you guys how to set up this little targeting system. So the way it works is that whatever object you're looking at the most, like the one you're looking at the closest to, is the one it will target. Now, only some of these objects I've had set up to be targetable. So this box, and the sphere are all targetable. And then when you fire, you'll see the bullet actually goes towards the target, wherever it happens to be. And so it kind of heat seeks to it, much like the needler in Halo, for example. And really, it's pretty simple to use once you have it set up. So say you want to make um, like this top box targetable as well. All you have to do is say click on it and add the component, the targetable component, just like that. And now this box will also be targetable. So if I play and I turn around, you can see this box is now targetable. And so it's a really simple system to use once you have it set up, and it just kind of works. And yeah, so when the arrows are turning red, so when they're yellow but they're still turning red, it's not fully locked on yet, then it won't let you fire. So if I try to fire while it's still locking on, it won't let me. Only once the arrows turn fully red, it will let you fire. And if you're not looking at anything, it also won't let you fire. So I try to keep it as generic as possible so you guys can kind of use it for whatever you want. Like maybe you want to make a heat-seeking missile for a plane, or like an RPG or something like that. Then you can definitely use this functionality to do that. So that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So I'm going to open up the Epic Game Launcher. I'm going to be doing this from scratch. And then I'm using 4.25.3, so I'm going to go ahead and launch that. I always recommend being on whatever version I'm using or newer, just to avoid any issues. And then let's select Games down here and hit Next. And then we're doing the first person template. Oops, I kind of clicked that kind of fast. So I selected this one, first person template, and then hit Next. And then I'm going to leave on starter content because I think I need that for the sphere. I'm not 100% sure, but make sure you have blueprints and starter content here. And then I'm just going to call this the targeting tutorial, and then I'm going to go ahead and create the project. Now there is one thing, I did use an asset pack from the marketplace to make those little arrows. And so the one that I used, if you guys want to use the same one, is, let me just find it real quick. So it's called Pro Icon Pack. So if you go to the Marketplace tab and you search for Pro Icon Pack, you should find it. It was free when I downloaded it. I can't guarantee, oops, I guess it closed. I can't guarantee that it's going to be free anymore because sometimes these things go free and sometimes they're not free. But this is the one I used. Literally all I used from this is just those little arrows. So if it's not free and you don't want to buy it, you can definitely just draw your own arrow in Photoshop or whatever, or find one online and download it. But to keep things simple, I'm just going to add this to my project. Again, you definitely don't need this. You can find your own arrow online or draw your own. But if you do have this one or you have another icon pack, just go ahead and add it to the project. So I'm going to hit add to project and then search for my targeting tutorial and then add that guy to the project. And we'll let that do its thing. Okay, so now I have a brand new project here. So if you run it, it should just look like this. No targeting, obviously. And so from here, we can start working on stuff. Let me move my other project off to the side just so I can reference it, and then we can begin. So you'll see here that it added the Pro Icon Pack. If you happen to have it, it will add it here. We'll come back and use this later. We're just going to use like one texture from it, basically. But for right now, let's go ahead and create some of the files that we're going to need. So the first thing, let's create the actual marker, the target marker that shows up, that little yellow and red targeting icon. So right click and say blueprint class, and we will make this an actor, and we'll call it BP underscore target marker, just like so. And then we're also going to need a targetable component, because like you saw at the beginning, I kind of set it up where I can click on objects and say add component and then search for the targetable component and just add it right there, and that will make it targetable. So we need to create that component. So to do that, let's right click, say blueprint class, and it's going to be of type actor component. So select actor component and then call this the targetable component. And then finally, we want one more for the widget, which is going to contain this guy. So right click and say user interface widget blueprint, and we'll call this the target widget. Okay, so the next thing we need to do now that we have these created is we want to go into our character and start writing the code to figure out which targetable object we're looking at. Because if you remember, I had it set up where when I'm looking around, it will kind of decide which one I'm targeting for you. or for me. I'll just show you again real quick on my other project. So as I look to the right, it says, oh, okay, you're looking the closest to this box, so let's target this one. If I start turning around, it will know I'm targeting this one. So I can only target one at once. So we need to add some code to figure out which object we're targeting. And we're going to do that inside of the character. So open up your character class, whatever it happens to be. In this case, it's the first person character. So open up the first person character. And then, oops, that's my other project, ignore that. And then over here on the left, we're going to create some variables and a couple functions that we're going to end up using. So let me just 1 second. Okay, so over here on the left, under variables, hit the little plus button to add a new one. And we need to add a variable for the targeting range, because obviously we don't want to be able to target things that are, 500 miles away. So hit the button and we'll call it the targeting range. And then let's change it to a float. And to keep things organized, I'm going to take this variable, so make sure it's selected, and then over here on the left, under category, let's type in targeting, and then I'm going to put it in a constant category as well, because it's a constant variable. And to do that, to do like subcategories, if you hold down shift and hit backslash, which is the button under the backspace, it will create this little vertical pipe icon. And then after that, type constants, and then you can see it creates targeting, and then under that, it created a subcategory called constants. And so this is a constant, and we can compile and set it to something that we want. So let's set it to like 3,000. So this is basically saying anything that's within 3,000 units away, we can target. And then since this is a constant value, we want to set it to blueprint read only so that we can't change it. And then we can also set it to private, because obviously we don't want this value being changed outside of the class. And then we want one more constant, so right click on this and just say duplicate, and that will make sure it keeps all these properties. Except for this one, we're going to call it the targeting cone angle. And so what this is it's basically the angle from where you're looking that will, I don't know how to explain it. If you kind of imagine a cone coming out of the camera, anything inside of that cone will be targetable, and this is the angle of the cone. So this is just making sure that, if you're not looking anywhere near something, it won't try to target it. So essentially, the larger you make this angle, the more easier it will be to target things. So I think for my tutorial, I had it at 40 degrees. And again, that might be too high or too low, depending on what you're trying to do, but you can tweak this value later. It's just basically how easy it is to target things, like how close you actually have to be how close you actually have to be looking at them to target them. Okay, so these are our two constant variables, and make sure you have them set to 3040 or something close to that. And then after that, we want to make another variable to keep track of what object we are currently targeting. So make a new variable, and we will call this the current target. And then for this type, we just want it to be an actor, because this can really be anything. Like it could be a box, it could be a player, it could be a helicopter, it could be whatever you want. So since actor is the base class for everything, we're going to select actor. And then for this one, we also want to drag it into the targeting category, not the constants category, just the targeting category. And then for this one, we'll add a subcategory called private. So I'm going to do the shift backslash again and say private. So you can see now we have a private category. And so for this one, we're just going to set the private checkbox to true, because obviously we don't want people outside of us changing our current target. And then finally, we want one more for the current target marker, because we need to be able to keep track of where, or of if the target marker is showing and where it's showing. So that way, if we go and if we're targeting one thing, we start targeting another thing, we need to be able to delete the old target marker and create a new one on the new object. So I guess we can just duplicate this and then say target marker, and we want this to be of type BP underscore target marker, which is the class or the blueprint we created at the beginning. If you look back here, BP target marker, it's just this guy. So you should have these 4 variables, and these are the ones we're going to be primarily using to do our targeting. So to do the targeting, it needs to happen inside of the tick, or at least relatively frequently, because obviously every time you move, you want to be able to check if you're looking at something new. So we're going to implement the event tick, just like so. And to do that, sorry I did that quick, you just right click and say event tick, and then you just select it. So this will get called every tick or every frame. And the first thing we want to do is we want to find the best target. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to set our current target to that. So we're going to create two functions to do that. So over here on the left, we're going to make a new function. And just like I said, the first thing we want to do is we want to find the best target. So we'll call this find best target. And we can make this private. And I'm just going to add this to a targeting category as well, just to keep things nice and organized. And then for this one, it needs to take in the, actually it doesn't really need to take in anything. It just needs to return the target that it found. So we will return an actor, like so. And then this will be called our target. And we'll go ahead and write this in just 1 second. I just want to make the other function real quick since we're already here. So we'll make another function and call it set current target. And then we'll hook that up to the targeting category as well, just to keep things organized, and we can make this private. And this one, we want to have it take in the target. So over here on the right, add a new parameter of type actor and call it the target. So now back here in the event graph, we can simply say find best target and then set current target. And the target we want it to set is this one. And I know it's a little confusing because there's two targets here. Target is just the default. It's the invoking object. It's the name that Epic chose to use. But don't get these confused. This is, just leave this one alone. The target is ourselves. This is referring to the actual target we're targeting. So this is what we want it to look like inside event tick. And now we just need to write these functions. So if we come inside of find best target, the first thing we want to do is get all the actors that are close enough, like within our targeting range, that we might be targeting. So we kind of want to get like all the available, or all the candidates, all the possible targets in range. So that way we're not just looking at everything in the scene, like even things that are thousands of miles away. We're only looking at the things that are within our targeting range. So to do that, we're going to use a sphere overlap. So if you right click and say sphere overlap actors, we want this one, sphere overlap actors. And we want to hook this up to there. And we can leave this unhooked for now because we're going to be doing a lot of stuff. But so we want to spawn this sphere at the location of the player or the person doing the targeting. So to do that, we can just say get actor location since we're inside of the player already. The sphere radius is going to be our targeting radius. So if you just take the targeting range and drag it over here into the sphere radius, so we'll hook that up. The object type, we're going to have to drag off of this and say make array. So this is basically specifying what object types we want this sphere overlap to actually overlap with. And you can see there's a list of them here. We pretty much want all of these, at least to keep it generic. If you know specifically you're only going to be targeting pawns or something, then you can only select pawns here. Or if you're only going to be selecting vehicles, you can just select vehicles. But to make sure it works with everything, we're pretty much going to add all of these except for projectiles because we're not going to be targeting projectiles. So add this. Just adding a pin for each one of these in here, except for projectile, like so. So these are all of our object types that we care about. And then the actors to ignore, we obviously want to ignore the player because we don't want him to be able to target himself. So again, we'll say make array. And then we just want to pass in ourselves. So we'll right click and say get ref to self. And we'll hook that up. Okay, so what this is going to do is it's going to get all of the actors around us within this range and return to us in the form of an array. So we want to take all of these actors that we've overlapped with and loop over them. So drag off that and say for each loop. So for each one of these guys, we want to check if it has the targeting component. Because if it doesn't have the targeting component, then we don't want to target it. We only want to be able to target things that are considered targetable. So to do that, we can just say get component by class. Now, I guess one thing worth mentioning here is there's a couple different ways you could do this. Like a couple different ways you could specify that an actor is targetable. You could use tags. You could use an interface. I just chose to use a component simply because I like that you can come over here in the world view and add components to objects just like very simply like this. So we can add the targeting component to this guy. I'm not going to do it, but we can add the targeting component to this guy just right here in the editor. But for interfaces, you wouldn't necessarily be able to do that because you can't add interfaces to objects that are already in the scene. You can add tags, so you could do tags to make this work. You could add like a targetable tag down here. I'm just not a huge fan of tags. I think they're kind of sketchy, to be perfectly honest. So that's why I chose to use components, but it's not like you have to use a component. But anyways, so the component that we care about is the targetable component, so make sure you change this to targetable component. And then we want to say is valid. Not that one. We want the other one. We want this macro one is valid. So what this is basically checking is, I'll just add a little comment here saying is targetable. So if it's valid, that means the actor we overlapped with is targetable. And if it's not valid, that means it's not targetable. So if it is targetable, then what we want to do is we want to figure out, or we basically want to calculate how close we are to looking at this object. And to do that, we're going to use something called the dot product, which I'll try to explain the best that I can as we do it. But basically what we want to do is we want to say get actor forward vector, which is the direction that we are looking in, like our player's forward vector. And we want to take the dot product, so say dot product. Should look something like this, dot product. We want to take the dot product of where we're looking and a vector that's pointing from where we are to the actor we're targeting. So let's come back here real quick and just make a quick little variable. So I'm going to move all of this over because I want to save this. Oops, not that. Move this back over here. I want to save this guy as a local variable just so it's easier to reference. So I'm going to right click right here and say promote to local variable. And I'm going to call this the current target. And then in parentheses, I'm going to put local because it's a local variable. That's just something I like to do to keep things organized. Again, make sure you have it as a local variable and not a normal variable because it's only local to this function. And then we can hook that up like so. And I'll just hook this guy over there. So it should look like this now. So now we're kind of saving this variable. And while we're here, we're going to need a couple other local variables as well. So we have our current target. We also want our best target. So add another local variable. And we will call this the best target local. Because again, this function is trying to find the best target for us, like the one we're looking at the most. So we have our current target and our best target. And then we also need to keep track of our current and our best value. So add another local variable. These are going to be floats. So make this a float, and we will call it the current value local. And then I'm just going to duplicate this and say best value. And we want this to be a local variable as well. Okay, so now that we are looping over these guys, we've set our current target to the current one in the loop. We are checking if it implements if it contains the targetable component. And if it does, then we go back over here, we're doing the dot product. So we want to take the dot product of our actor's forward vector and a vector from our actor to the object. So we can say get actor location, and then we want to get unit direction vector. So this is going to get us a vector from here to here. So we went from actor location to our current target's location. So we'll say current target. And again, make sure you're using this local variable. It's a little confusing because we also have a current target in our variables, but make sure you're using this local one. So current target local, and then get actor location, and hook that up like so. And I'll show you what this is doing here in a second. So we want to take the dot product of those two. And then for right now, I'm just going to print this value. So I'm just going to say print string, just so you guys can see what's going on here. And then I'm going to hook this up to the print string like that. And then make sure you hook this up, which I forgot to do. And then we just need to return something. I'm just going to return this empty thing right now because it doesn't matter. But I just want to show you guys what this is doing. And I'm going to set this to 0 seconds. so it doesn't spam. And then back here in the event graph, make sure you have this set up. And then the only thing we need to do now is set something to be targetable. So if we come back here, I'm going to actually do it to this box, which I had selected earlier. So select this box, or just pretty much anything in your scene, doesn't really matter. And then say add component, and add the targetable component. And then save all, and then play. So as you can see, up here at the top left, we are getting a number that's printing out. And you can see when I'm looking at the object, the number is pretty close to 1. It's 0.99 or so. And then as I look away, so now I'm looking basically perpendicular to the object, it's 0. And if I'm looking totally away from the object, it's -1. So the idea here is that the closer you're looking to the object, the closer the number is to 1. And hopefully you can see that on your side as you play around. The closer you look to the object, the closer the number gets to 1. And so we want to use that behavior. So let's come back here and go to our find best target. And then we can delete this print string because we don't really need this anymore. And we can delete this guy. And so we want to set this to our current value. So over here in the local variables, let's drag in our current value and say set. Hook that up. And then we will hook this up to that, like so. And what we want to do is we want to check if this current value is greater than our best value. So if we say float greater than, we drag in our best value. So if it's greater than our best value, or if we don't actually have a best target yet. So we'll say or boolean, or we don't actually have a best target. So that would mean that best target is not valid. So we can say best target is valid, and then we want to say not, because we want to know if it's not valid, like so. So if it's better than our best value, or we just don't even have like a best value yet, then we'll do a branch here. And if that is the case, if that's true, then we want to update our best to be our current. So we'll set our best value, set best value to our current value, and we will also set our best target to our current target, like so. If it lets me. Actor object reference. Oh, this should be of type actor. I might have messed that up. Change variable type. So just to make sure you guys have this correct, current target should be an actor, best target should be an actor, and these should be floats. For some reason it wasn't an actor, but make sure they're both actors. Okay. And then this return value, we're actually going to drag it down over here. So let's go back over here, and we'll just drop it here below our for loop. So what this is doing again is it's looping over all of the available targets, and it's figuring out which one we're looking at the closest. So by the end of this for loop, the best target, our local best target variable down here, is going to be set to whichever one we're looking the closest at, which is nice. And that's the one we want to return. But we only want to return that one if it's inside of our targeting cone. Because even if it's the best target, if it's still not within our targeting cone, then we don't want to return it because we don't want it to count as a target. So when it completes, we want to get our best target. So drag in best target. And then if you right click on this and say convert to validated get, it will make a nice little pin here that tells us if it's actually valid as well. And we want to hook that up to the complete. And so again, if it's not valid, we just want to go ahead and return. So just say return, and you just want to leave this empty because we literally want to return nothing if it's not valid. But if it is valid, we want to check if it's inside of our targeting cone angle. So to do that, we can say, let's get the best value, and let's take the a cosine of it in degrees. Make sure you get a cosine in degrees. It should look like a cosine in degrees. Very important you get the right one here. And what that does is it's going to give us the angle. And so we want to say if it's less than or equal to our targeting cone angle, then we will consider it a valid target. So let's do a branch. So if it's less than or equal to our targeting cone angle, then we can actually return it. Otherwise, we just want to return nothing. So I'm going to copy this return node, copy paste, and then copy paste again. And if it's true, we want to return the best. So we'll say best, like so. Okay, I think that's all we have here. So again, just to kind of recap this function, because I know it could be a little bit confusing. So the first thing we do is we're getting all the actors in our targeting range. So just pretty much getting all the the possible candidates that we could target. Oh, we should probably change this to actor as well. The actor class filter, just so it filters anything that's not an actor, which I think is everything. So maybe it doesn't matter, but can't hurt. So we get all the actors within range, and then we loop over each one. And then this top part here is we're figuring out, which one is the one we're looking at the most. And then when the loop finishes, we're saying, okay, is the one that we're looking at the most inside of our cone angle that we consider to be valid targets? If it is, then we're going to go ahead and return it. Otherwise, we just return nothing. So that's what this function does. And then when it completes, it calls set current target, which we need to write this one. So inside of here, we're getting passed in the target from that other function. And what we want to do first is we want to check if it's equal to our current target. Because if it's already equal to our current target, then we don't want to do anything because nothing's changed. So we'll say is, actually we're going to use not equal because we really care if it's not equal. So we'll say not equals. So if it's not equal, and we want to compare it to our current target. If it's not equal to our current target, then we want to do a branch here. And we want to then do a sequence because we want to do 3 things. So I'm going to hold down S and left click to create a sequence. You can also create one by right clicking and searching for sequence, like so. But we want to hook that up to the true. So if they're not equal, which means our target is changing, then first we want to remove the target from the old object, and then we want to update our new target, and then we want to show the target widget on the new one. So we want 3 pins, so add a little plus here. And I'm going to make little functions for this just to, actually, I guess we probably don't need, yeah, I'll make functions anyways. So over here on the left, just to keep things a little bit more organized, I'm going to create an end target and a begin target function. So make a function and call it end target, drag this into the targeting category and set it to private. And then I'll do one more. Actually, I'm just going to duplicate this. So duplicate, and we'll call it begin target. So back now inside of set current target, we want to call end target, which is going to remove the widget from our current target. And then we want to update our current target. So we'll drag in our current target and say set, and this will be the next thing we do. And we want to set it to whatever value is passed in here. So if you just right click and say get target, and it's going to be at the bottom because that's just the way it does it, get target. So this is referring to this parameter right here. So we end the target on our previous one, we update it to the new one, and then we're going to call begin target, which will add it back. So now we just need to fill out these 2 functions. So this one's done. It's pretty straightforward. So let's do begin target first because it might make a little bit more sense. So inside of here, we want to check if our current target is valid. So drag in our current target, say get, and then right click. And again, we're going to convert it to a validated get just so we can make sure it's actually valid. And so if it's valid, we want to say get actor location because this is the location that we're going to be spawning our target marker at, that little yellow and red marker. And so we're going to say spawn actor from class. And the actor we want to spawn is our BP target marker, like so. We'll hook that up to is valid. And then you're going to have to split this transform. So right click and say split. And then we can hook up the location to the location. We don't really care about the rotation or the scale because this widget's going to be in screen space, so the rotation doesn't really matter. And obviously we don't want to scale it. And then we want to save this value, so we've already made a little target marker for it. So drag this in and say set, and then hook this up like so. If this pin is giving you an error, like it won't connect, just make sure that you have the target marker set to BP target marker up here, and that will fix that. Okay, so now we've created the new target marker, And the final thing we need to do with this target marker is we need to attach it to whatever object we're targeting. So that way, as you saw in my other one, let me just run it real quick. You'll see as this ball moves, the target marker, that little red marker on it, it moves with it, and that's because it's attached to it. So to do that, we just want to say attach actor to actor, attach actor to actor. If you're on an older version, they've changed the name of this. I think it used to be called attach to actor, or I can't remember what it used to be called, but they changed the name of this like pretty much every other day. So, but we want the one that attaches an actor to an actor, whatever that happens to be called. So we want that one. The target is going to be our target marker, and the parent is going to be whatever the current target is. So drag in the current target and hook that up. And we want to say snap to target, so that way it snaps to wherever the target is. Okay, so that's our begin, pretty straightforward. And then we can fill out our end now. This one's going to be pretty straightforward as well. All we have to do here is we want to check if our target marker is valid. So we'll drag this in and convert it to a validated get as well. And if it's valid, then we just want to destroy it. So we'll just say destroy actor, just like that. And then we can probably just set our target marker to nothing as well. So drag it in, say set, and just leave it empty. That will set it to nothing. All right. So let's see here. At this point, if we come back here, I'm just trying to think if I can run to show you guys anything, or if we should just keep going. Yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot to show right now because you're not going to be able to see the target. So the next thing we need to do is actually create that target marker widget. So I think I'm going to do that in the next part of this tutorial. So I'll see you guys in part 2.